Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is Security Happy Hour. This is Cyberwarrior Studios, and it's Black Friday. So we are going to have a ton of people joining us today. I've already got David Fraley, John Stoner, Mike Buzzard, Paul Charles, Kim Crawley once again, all joining us today. So you know the deal. If you've watched this before, we're going to go around the room and do a little intro for everybody. For people that have this is their second time on the show, we're going to come back to you after the fact just because we're going to get some of these new people get their intros in, out of the way. And then we also have Ty Wilson and Davin Jackson joining us a little bit later. So for today, oh, and here's our other UK buddy. For today, let's go ahead and get started. And why don't we start with David Fraley, Makeshift on Twitter, who you're always putting out some interesting news or concepts or talking to people. It gets crazy. So why don't we start with you, kind of how you're, coming about things and what you got going on, man?
Well, yeah, as you said, my name is David Fraley, or Makeshift on Twitter. I guess I currently work as a help desk analyst for a medical billing company, and man, I took a my associate's degree is actually in information assurance and security, and as I was taking all that and all these classes, I'm like, man, like I feel like I want to kind of dig deeper into this, and ended up coming across a dude named the Cyber Mentor, and it just all went, I guess, downhill from there. I just got deep dive into it. I was crazy. I just love this stuff now. And now I'm buying up all the books. I'm following people left and right that are just posting super interesting stuff or stuff that I can learn from them. And yeah, I am anything and everything I can soak up, I will.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, John, do me a favor. I think I got a message from our buddy Andy. Can you send him the link for tonight?
Yeah.
That way he can jump on. And yeah, man, like that's the thing, right? So you, among a few other people, Dave, have been like, I'm not really, I don't know what to say. I'm kind of, new and this, that, and the third. And, like everybody else that's been on this show, and I've told them outright, that's kind of the point to what I'm doing, right? It's laid back. It's not something serious. It's not like you're on some podcast with somebody that's going to like grill you on everything security. It's just a conversation. And that's what I love about it. You can get your voice heard and get your opinion out there without feeling like you are on the spot, without feeling like, oh my God, if I say something wrong, it's the end of the world. Because it's not. I mean, we all have our own opinions on how things in security should go. So seeing the way you've come up and the cyber mentor and things like that, and I'm sure everybody just heard my son yell in the background. Well, one of five. So, seeing how, you all come up and things like that, that's what I love about this, because that's how we come together as a community, by learning from each other. I don't care how new you are. I don't care how long you've been doing the job. You could be doing this for 30, 40 years. You can always learn from somebody else. So that's why I love doing this. Andy, thanks for joining us. Good
Thanks,
to
brother.
have you on here, man. So moving right along, why don't we go kind of down? We'll go to Paul next, from Technical Cyber Solutions, I believe it is. Paul, am I right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's also my handle on Discord. So I believe I'm on your channel, sort of infiltrated on there. Hi guys, I'm from the UK. So it's a bit late for me here. I think Ben's in the same boat as me. I'm feeling a little bit tired. I'm actually technical background, but I'm actually a recruiter for pen testers, focusing on UK and the USA predominantly. So we get a lot of jobs. Most of our jobs right now are in the UK, unfortunately, but hopefully that will change. Yeah, just really happy to be here. Really, I don't really do these sorts of things much, so it's good to be on and good to meet people.
Good to have you, Paul. And the delay is because, it just keeps growing. So now we've got Ty Wilson from Cover 6 Solutions on here. So, the list just keeps going. So now my order's kind of getting messed up at how I'm doing things. But we're still going to continue on with some of the new guys before we get into Right there, brother, right there. Before we get into any of the, repeat customers of Security Happy Hour. So, Mike, moving along to you, man. We've talked a little bit in the past, but what do you got going on, and how'd you get into this?
Oh man, I'm the fancy GRC audit compliance guy in the group, I think. So I've been in InfoSec for about a year and a half, and actually came over from kind of the ISO laboratory certification world last summer. Just beyond that, it was a jump, sort of in the same vein of work, just different stuff I'm looking at now, obviously. But I've kind of been a hobbyist and enthusiast and a big fan of networks for a long time before even thinking about jumping over to cybersecurity.
That's awesome, though, because you don't always have to make a career out of it, right? So even in GRC is huge, because even where I work now, a lot of consultants work in the GRC space, because you have to understand regulation, you have to understand policy, you have to understand how these companies are able to not just check the box. Now, some of them are still going to fight you on it and be like, oh, I've got my, vulnerability assessment. It's my pen test, so let's check the box and we're good to go.
Oh, yeah.
But, being able to talk the regulation and the policies is huge.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have you. And again, we're going to get into all types of conversations tonight, and I'm loving it. Kim, being that you've been here before, we're going to kind of jump over you real quick, and we're going to go to John Helmus and then over to Ben. So, John, man, I saw you have a new YouTube channel, or at least a new stream coming along, trying to help new guys to InfoSec and cybersecurity. I saw it on LinkedIn. Had to have you on here because I think we kind of are going along the same route of trying to get not just people that have been doing this for a while and trying to include everybody, but the new guys that just aren't heard or don't know how to get started. I mean, all these people here are here to help. That's what we do. So, what do you got, man?
Yeah, man. Well, one, thanks for having me here. It's awesome to be here. I'm already loving the vibe, and I've only been in the channel for about 5 minutes or so. Any talk I get to be into where I get to have a drink in my hand is always better. So yeah, man. You and me are. It seems like we didn't even speak. We didn't even talk to each other, man. And we have very symmetric goals where we're just trying to help out those that are on the outside looking in, right? And so today I actually posted out the first podcast. It's on Spotify now for offensive security interviews, which is essentially, it's going to be a YouTube channel, and it's also got a LinkedIn channel where essentially I interview students and cyber enthusiasts for like myself, and then I'll have like a co-host sometimes. The first episode this week, we had a co-host where I essentially, give them interview style questions, but it's in a relaxed environment like this, and turn it into like this soft interview, and then use that on my platform to help, illustrate these, really highly technical individuals that just can't get into cyber. And, use it as a podcast. The offensive security interviews LinkedIn channel as well. I'm doing like OSCP questions of the week or questions of the day too, to like get morale and I guess thoughts around OSCP, and like for those trying to get the OSCP to help build like community inclusiveness into that, to help push people in the right direction for that.
Nice, yeah, man. Because I know OSCP is big right now in the offensive space, and I got it myself earlier this year, but one of the big things about it is some people want to use it as the end-all be-all. And it's like, oh, if I get that, I can get anything. When the fact remains that teaches you the very basics of pen testing, in my opinion, and that's enumeration. Oh, yeah. Enumeration and report writing. Now, saying that, though, it doesn't make it easy. It is still one of the hardest practical tests that you can take for the purpose of for even some of pen testers that have been doing it for a while, you get into these habits of where you know where to look for things, and man, they will throw some oddball stuff at you where you're just like, I didn't even see it. I didn't even know. Like, what do I do with this? It's crazy. So
I know what you mean, man.
It is awesome, and it's great that you're doing that, and I love that you're doing that, because I think it's something that is very much needed in the industry, especially with some of the questions that some of the companies will ask you, or if you're afraid to just apply for a job. you know, if you're able to speak to it, even on a not really interview level, but interview level based on the podcast, if you can speak to it and answer the questions and get feedback, then it'll make you more comfortable going into and applying to other jobs for those interviews. So I think that's amazing. Moving right along, before we get into anything else, let's go to Ben, man. Dude, you're another one from the UK that I've been trying to have a time where I can get people from the UK on here, because I actually got asked by one of my buddies. They're like, why do you interact with so many people from the UK? Like, it's crazy. I'm like, because they're awesome. Like, I have a ton of friends over there. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, most of my friends, well, not most of my friends, but my friends scatter all the countries. I was on 2 minutes ago talking to B over in India, some guys down in South Africa. It's like everyone's everywhere, and especially since COVID and all that, we're integrating a lot more. I'm finding you get more of these things popping up, and it's great to see. It's all about community, and that's kind of the main thing. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's the one thing I've noticed about you, and a lot of, you know, you look at yourself and Lisa Forte and you know, other people that I've interacted with, to include Paul and JJ Davey, who is huge on LinkedIn. I don't see him very much on Twitter. He doesn't come across my feed, but on LinkedIn, the man is all over the place. You know, I see a lot of people from the UK that put out a lot of good information and are just trying to better the community, and that's what I love to see. So it's good to have you here, man. I'm glad you can make it. I know you're just coming from like another happy hour style thing, so you're probably a few sheets to the wind by now, but you know, it is good to have you here.
Not a heavy drinker, so I've kind of saved myself. If I drink too much, I fall asleep. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. So we're going to go back to the top of my lovely Zoom meeting here. And we're going to go and kind of John, Kim, Andy, Ty, all of you have been here before. You all know the drill. But we want to get into some conversation. So we'll make some people go back and see some of the more detailed introductions that you guys have done. But just give them one off of kind of like what you're doing or whatever, and we'll just go down through you four and see what's going on, man.
All right, so I think I'm up. I'm John. Cyber threat intel, DoD contractor, U.S. government. I work at a federal cyber center, and I just really became involved in the community back in 2016 at the first B-Sides Nova. And it was there I realized I can help people who have trouble getting in and getting started. So I do resume reviews. I help out at the career villages. I'm in VetSec to help out with that community of veterans trying to get into cybersecurity. So it's kind of my thing, just trying to help other people.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's big. Again, I think, and that's what I love about everybody here that I've talked to and a lot of the people I interact with, is we're all about helping others. Kim, who I know has helped me immensely recently with the book that I'm writing, which I do got to get back to writing it, but I've had some things come up and it's just been hectic and I really haven't been in the right headspace. But I will get back to it and utilizing your amazing advice. But Kim, give us a quick rundown one more time about what's going on with you.
Well, I am so relaxed right now that I'm just sitting at my desk eating a bowl of homemade pea soup. So that's my relaxation level. Copies of the book that I wrote with Phil Wiley, I just received them today. I received a big box of books from my publisher. So I'm very excited about that. Today, work-wise, I spent the day doing dark web OSINT research for a major Canadian bank. I'm not allowed to tell you which particular major Canadian bank it is, but it's one of them. So that was fun. So I spent like the past few days researching for that report, and now it's all written and all the data has been sent off. So that's like a major load off of my shoulders.
Definitely, I can imagine, and I can't begin to fathom how hard it is to do research on the dark web, just because of how hard it is to get to some of those forums and some of those links. And so often these days you don't know what you're going to, and you could go to a link that says it's a hacker forum, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this site's been seized by law enforcement, and you're like, but it said hacker forum. Like, what are you doing to me? Like, I'm trying to get some info here. So yeah, it's kind of crazy how some of these things come about, and how hard it is to really do dark web OSINT. And you've got people like yourself, or Recorded Future, who that's what they specialize in, is being able to scour the dark web for all this information. And you're like, dude, that would take me forever. I don't even have all the links that some people do. Like, that would take me forever. So
it wasn't that difficult because they wanted to know like which of their breached credit card data was being sold on dark web markets right now.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to. So I just had to report on what I was able to find. I didn't have to report on resources or vendors or dark web markets that have gone out of commission because of law enforcement. So that was
right.
Wasn't that bad.
All right, that's awesome. Andy, man, what you got?
First off, I totally forgot you cut off your beard, and that threw me off dialing in. I was like, I'm in the wrong call. Looks good though, brother. Yeah, Andy Piazza. I'm a threat intel analyst. I'm also the chief evangelist for PLC here in Northern Virginia. I'm also the director of operations for B-Sides Nova. How I know John and Ty, we do a lot of running around and going crazy there. If you've ever been on the volunteer side or organizer side of a B-Sides, it's usually a lot of running. Yeah, also, on top of everything I do in my day job, I'm also hiring manager and for my company. And so the whole hiring conversation that always seems to come up, and that's one of the big reasons we have a hiring village at B-Sides Nova. I think it's a really hard thing to crack, like especially getting into InfoSec, right? That first step, like I can give you really great mentoring advice once you're in, tell you what path you need. When people are like, how do I break in? I'm like, oh, here's a blog I read. Yeah. Other than, go to your local B-Sides, because networking is the number one way. But yeah, so hopefully we can get some better advice out there than me just pointing at somebody else's blog. But that's me. And I got myself a Yingling for the evening.
Yes.
And I got 3 dogs. So if you just see me jump off camera, I'm either getting another beer or chasing after dogs causing trouble.
That's why you got to have the mini fridge behind you like I do.
I actually have a kitchen down here in my basement right next to my office. I have a fridge like within arm's reach almost. Almost.
Just brought another beer with me.
So
I knew I wasn't going to have just one, so.
Me neither. That's why I have the fridge right here. So moving right along. All right, last but certainly not least, this guy, ever since I got out of the Army 3 years ago, I've been going back and forth with whether it's us helping each other on work or advice or looking for a job or OSCP, hints and tips, whatever the case may be. Ty Wilson, who I think has probably been doing some of the best work down in DC in the DMV area for people trying to get into cyber, trying to get trained, Cover 6 Solutions. Like, man, what's going on? I've seen quite a few of your classes popping up on Discord. So what all you got?
Like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, there's so much that I want to say. But I've been fighting this anxiety, I guess, for like putting in this work. So mentally, like I'm there and I want to be, and I want to do it from sun up to sundown to where I don't have any energy. So mentally, I'm there, but my body is finally saying that you can't do that anymore. So I've been focusing more on like working out. I've had some folks on the team that are running a lot of that for me now. Of course, I get it all, and during the classes and such, but I've been kind of taking a step back, doing a lot of talks and panels and things like that, just trying to take a lot of the stress off me. And it's been a long ride. So since 2012, when we started the meetup group, a lot of pizza, a lot of meeting in the basements, a lot of, getting people together. So I've had a chance to hear a lot of different stories, a lot of chance to help out a lot of people. I feel like we've built a really great platform. As a matter of fact, John's speaking next, right? December 17th.
That's it.
Yeah, breaking into cybersecurity. And, you know, I still have that passion. The people is what always calls me back whenever I'm feeling down. So honestly, I've been like in a lull for the last couple of weeks, but I feel that energy coming back now. So we'll see how it goes. And I think the last time I saw almost everyone was at B-Sides, right, Andy? And that was a lot of fun. So
A week before the world shut down, we had B-Sides Noah.
yeah, that was
Later,
yeah.
the world went on quarantine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the last time I saw people.
Yeah, that was the last event.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, man, definitely. I've like I said, I've seen you pushing, man, and you know, like yourself, burning the candle at both ends. It's never fun. It can wear you out. I think a lot of us have been there, whether it's your full-time job and a side project, or whatever the case may be, full-time job and family and a side project. You basically burning a candle in the middle and at both ends. It gets rough. So I completely understand it, and sometimes you just need to take a breather, which is why I gotta be honest, I haven't done all the videos I normally do. Like Monday I didn't do a video, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays I've really been slacking, but this I always make sure to do because this is where it's at. So I love what everybody's bringing, and so the question is right now, and because I've heard a lot about it, is breaking into cyber. That's kind of what everybody's talked about that they do, you know, and what everybody is looking for is, well, how do I get in? How do I just get my foot in the door somewhere? Andy, you said probably the key word, and that's networking in my eyes. Because you're not going to get into it, I'm sorry, with the way HR systems are, with the way the whole certification realm is, and degrees and everything else, if you can't prove that you write a blog about the things you do, if you don't have a blog out there, if you don't have a YouTube channel, if you don't have a GitHub page, if you're going to get into coding or scripting, then unless you're actively talking to people, there's no way to get anything else. It's so difficult to get past these HR systems. Excuse me. So, Dave, is someone kind of newer-ish getting into the field, trying to make a way in? What were some of the roadblocks you found getting in? And did you find networking helped you more than anything else?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm not in just yet. That's still a roadblock that I'm facing. But I've done some networking. I've made some friends. You know, Alyssa Miller. I would consider Kim Crawley a friend. I interact with you a lot on Twitter. So I've been trying to go about doing that as much as I can, and then on the side, I'm picking up books. I'm reading as much as I can. I'm looking at blog posts from, you know, like Naked Security or there's a couple. I mean, there's a number of different blogs that you can go to. Watching YouTube videos. I mean, I watch your videos. I watch Tanya Janka's videos. I watch Gavin Jackson's videos. I like any bit of content that I can try to consume. I am, because I mean, and like I want to be a pen tester. That's essentially what my, I guess, end goal is. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a struggle. I mean, like even like in the area that I live in, there's not that many jobs for cybersecurity, and kind of breaking away from that and like having the thought of moving away from like family and friends and everything is a little intimidating for me. So it's like, yeah, it's like that might be a little bit holding me back, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I know a lot of places are looking for certifications. So like I'm watching a bunch of videos, and I actually have a class on Udemy that I'm watching to try to get my Security Plus certificate so that I can, you know, at least that's something on my resume that's a solid thing. You know, like I have a Microsoft Fundamentals Network and Security certificate, but it's like, you know, they're going to look at that and they're like, it's a Fundamentals one. It's not a Security Plus. It's not a Network Plus. It's not one of these more reputable ones.
Hey, look, I started with Microsoft Certs, so I don't knock Microsoft Certs at all. That's where I got my start, was Office certification. So if we're talking, And let's be honest, when Microsoft tests you on something, they make you go the long, hard, arduous route of all their technical certs. Like, when I took all my Office certs, it was, I knew all the shortcuts to do things. And it'd be like, hey, do this. And you'd try to do the shortcut and be like, oh, no, you got to go the long way. And you're sitting there going, son of a, but I know how to do it. So yeah, man. I don't knock Microsoft certs at all. They are very, very difficult to do.
Well, they're super foundational too. I think we all jump into getting these big, sexy certs, and unless you come from an experience of being a sysadmin, help desk, like, there's a lot of basic knowledge that I don't know. I'm a threat analyst. I can tell you all about how APTs do badness, and then I go to hunt, and I'm like, oh, well, this is pretty effing normal in my environment. I better start. About 2 years ago, I really started studying Windows more instead of the bad guys, because I realized I didn't know a lot about Microsoft basics or Linux basics, but I knew a whole bunch about all this cool, sexy stuff. And in my early years, completely missed the fundamentals.
Definitely.
And there are some people who like are paper cert, right? Like they had training budgets or found the freaking brain dumps, right? And they got certified, but then they didn't learn the material. So even if they have a Sec Plus, then that comes out at an interview. And I've talked to some of those folks, and it was like, you have to understand the material and then practice your interview questions. If you can't answer the question, then it doesn't matter if you have the cert or not, because you really don't know the material.
I'm right here, John. I'm right here.
Mike Buzzard, man, from the GRC side, what do certifications mean to that side of things?
Oh, geez.
Like, because GRC I see as needing more. I think you need more experience in the field to understand. I think GRC is more high level than some of your technical aspects. It doesn't necessarily make it harder, but you require that broader area of knowledge, in my opinion, to be able to do certain things. Would you agree?
Yes and no. I've got, you can't see it here, but I've got, my Security Plus CISA, and I just passed my pen test a couple weeks ago, just trying to kind of get my, I want to call it the core knowledge in place for what I do. And again, I'm coming into InfoSec and IT, never having held a formal sysadmin job, right? Like Andy just mentioned, can I walk my way around Linux and Windows with the modest user's perspective, right? Yes. And, I'm on the side trying to learn Linux, trying to learn the different flavors of it, looking at Windows, things like this. So that's kind of where I'm gonna lean with the no, because especially where I work a lot with the federal audits and stuff like FedRAMP, DoD, and we're hoping to get it on. Yeah, I see John rolling your eyes. I talked to you about this stuff in the spring at B-Sides. But so a lot of the stuff, and especially a lot of my personal role, these controls out of the NIST documents that I have to look at, a lot of them need you to understand the technical stuff behind it, right? Like what's the difference between TLS 1.2 and 1.3? Maybe not that deep a level, but knowing TLS is there or it's not. How do you check? Knowing how do you check what types of encryption are on disks or on applications or on the wire, right? We need to be able to do that to do our jobs correctly.
Right.
At the same time, and this is where I'm going to kind of jump towards that yes side where you were talking about it being a lot more high level and a lot more broad. We also, to do a good job, really need to have the understanding of the bigger picture of these control standards, so NIST or DoD or whatever it is, and we need to have the ability to take a look at our clients and either their system, if we're kind of within a bubble of what they offer altogether, or if it's their entire business model, right? We need to be able to look at that and analyze what they're doing from a practical perspective and how we can fit that in and kind of navigate it where there's wiggle room within these NIST documents and these other documents. And then when there's not the wiggle room, we have to be able to have that communication, like you said, and tell these clients of ours, hey, I know that you guys want to do it this way. I know this is the easier way to do it, but here's why the feds say no. Right. We've got to be able to have that technical as well as the business talk with them.
Right. So, looking at all this, in my system for some reason just whatever. I get kind of frustrated with the field because everybody wants to claim there's a skills gap. Everybody wants to claim that there's not enough people or they don't know enough. Yet I see Kim, I see Andy, Ty, John, Ben, John, Paul, Dave, Mike, and the countless other people that we interact with on a daily basis, and some of whom struggle to find jobs. Why should anybody that has the basic knowledge struggle to find a job? Are they? Where's this?
We're a cost center. Security is a cost center.
Well, it is and it isn't, because let's be honest, these companies go out of their way, and we've seen ransomware these days where you're put up for ransom for more than what it would take to pay somebody. If you were paying someone a monthly fee, let's say you were paying them $100 and some thousand a year, and that's on the high end. We'll say 110, 120, and you put out a ransom for say $30,000. That's more than that person would have made in a month. And now, if you pay that ransom, they're still sitting on your system. They're still taking your data. So now you're putting out not just the ransom money, but the money that you have to cover for all of your employees and clients' data being breached now. Because now you've got to put out for credit monitoring or whatever else, which is still going to cost you a pretty penny. So is it really worth it? Are we really that much? Is security really that much of a cost center that if you're paying your insurance company that it might only cover 15 grand? Let
me pose the question to you. So I did training for a few years, and one of the questions, and everything we do deals with risk, right? And even back in the laboratory ISO world, we had to teach people what risk meant, not from, I've got my Funko Pops around here, right? Not from the risk perspective of, is my child going to choke on this? But it's the risk perspective of, what if I do something wrong? What's the chances of it? What's it going to do to my company, right? So the easy question I always gave to everybody is, who drives under the influence at all, whoever drives over the speed limit, especially in poor weather conditions, and without their seatbelt on. Any or all of those four, right? If you look at every business in the world and ask them those four questions, proverbially how they run their business, somebody's going to be somewhere in that combination, right? They're taking some level of risk. And how much they want to take, right? We can still do all four of these things proper. You can do 55 and a 55. I mean, you can do 50 when it's rainy, headlights on, seatbelt, plenty of a large gap, and you can still do what happened to one of my former coworkers' husbands, and randomly hydroplane, flip his car, and have to be cut out 2 days before Thanksgiving. So these things can happen no matter what we try and do. The good companies are the ones who are out there trying their best to do it, and to do it right. And then there's all the other companies who don't want to pay that $100K a year. They don't want to do it. Or they'll trust, my MSSP, who also runs my O365, they're going to take care of everything for me. They may not have, so to speak, the skills to see they're proverbially up against.
We've seen MSSPs be breached.
Especially the last couple of years. Yeah.
So they've been targets.
Well, I think so. Part of it is shifting the terminology. I hate calling security a risk or a cost center. HR is a cost center. Your sales department's a cost center. It's all a part of doing business.
True.
And we got to stop pretending like we're costing the company or the organization profit, right? If they pay an HR person or they pay for whatever, that's all part of their profit, right? To make a product or secure a product, that's all part of the product cost. Let's stop. I think it's a disservice to our own field to act like we're, adding a layer of discomfort to the organization. It's just a part of doing business, right? If you want to run a physical store, you got to have a lock to be able to lock up at night, right? You don't call your locksmith a cost center. He's part of doing the business, right?
But what if you bought a bigger, better lock?
I mean, we can
right? You're still protecting the same thing, so it's also about value. And
exactly. So
and that conversation with like Jeff Mann, the whole risk conversation, and try to measure risk and what is risk. Like you can do everything right, you still have to worry about those drunk drivers that are out on the road, right? How do you measure that? So
But
I think basically there's no profit in security, right?
But I could get a warehouse that's too big for the product that I build and waste money on square footage, right? It's the same concept. It's not an extra layer to doing business. It's a fundamental part of doing business. We have to stop that, like that we're putting a burden on the business, right? If you want to sell t-shirts, you got to figure out where to put them or pay somebody else to put them somewhere. Do you pay too much money for too much square footage? Or do you get the right amount of square footage that you can grow into, right? Like, that's the thing is I hate is we keep talking about our own career field as if it's a burden to the business. And it's not. It's a part of doing business, especially in 2020, where everything is damn remote at this point, it seems like.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I can't remember. All right, later. All right.
Say hi to the internet.
Yeah, right. So I really think that at the end of the day, beyond us being called a cost center, which I don't think any of us like, we say it, but we don't like it, and we really do have to stop doing that. I still go back to the fact that this all spawned from where is the disconnect in hiring people and getting
Paul hit it.
Where's the disconnect in getting this taken care of? You know what I mean?
From the recruitment side, so I can actually speak from brutal experience, to be honest, when it comes to that. So there's a disconnect when you go between the line manager and the HR. So the HR, they're employed to sort out your pay and all of the other stuff that HR do. They don't understand what cybersecurity is. They don't understand what, you tell them OSCP, they'll go, great, I'll go find someone with OSCP, and they'll just look for that. They won't think, oh, maybe this is equivalent of it, or this experience is actually good enough to be as good as OSCP. They won't know that. And there's a disconnect there. A lot of the time, the line managers don't always explain it to HR. So, they'll just go and find whatever bit of paper they've got in front of them. So, number one reason is terrible job descriptions. I think we've all seen them, entry-level CISSP. Come on, it's not entry-level. And then the other one, I think, is, again, going back to entry-level, because we're talking about getting into cyber. There seems to be a lack of motivation to train people across the board. Ooh. So they'll be like, let's say a job description will have 5 things that they want, and you might have 4 of those things. Which, it's good enough to apply, but they won't want to train you on that 5th one, which might be minor. But because you don't have it, you're not getting the job. And it's, if we can get round that, then you can solve the skills shortage. It's just communication and training.
Doesn't that go back around with the thought of security being a cost center though, where if you have a candidate that has X, Y, and Z, or 1, 2, 3, 4, but they need 5, you're like, we'll eventually get someone, and we don't need this right now. I mean, isn't that kind of like the company culture recruiting mindset already?
I think the cost center also depends on which sector of industry we're speaking about. Like if we're speaking about I work inside a company like back office, that's different than a lot of the consulting roles or selling security too. So the mindset changes a little bit depending on the industries.
I think the big problem with our industry when it comes from a hiring and growth perspective is it's still a pretty young industry, and there's not a lot of maturity around. I mean, the NICE framework, right, is a really great framework for, if you haven't seen it, NICE framework, US CERT's website, now CISA, but it's still, I think, off the US CERT website, has a really good tool for it, is trying to bucket some of the role names and the knowledge, skills, and abilities required for those roles and kind of help standardize that. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a really good start in the right direction because, I think for a long time, folks just knew they needed an InfoSec person or a cyber person and didn't know what the heck that meant, and that it required multiple skill sets, right? So you got to be a malware analyst, packet analyst, risk analyst, threat analyst. Like, I'm a threat analyst. I get lost on the dark web, and I think it's crazy. I don't speak foreign languages. Like,
you don't speak Russian, Andy? Come on.
Right? There's multiple subsets within the career fields, right? And most people just were like, I want an InfoSec specialist or an InfoSec manager, right? And I think that's part of the problem is we haven't matured into realizing there are multiple roles. Most companies that started looking at InfoSec probably in the last 20 years, if not less than that.
I'd say
right?
probably the last 5-10 years. I really would.
And it is super wide there too. You guys mentioned, or you were asking earlier, the GRC stuff especially is super wide, and everybody's looking at the CISA and the CISP, for moving forward in the GRC role and in management, just to have that umbrella over everything that's going on, enough to know the touch points, and then to be able to pull in the Davids and the Johns and the Andys to fill the specific niches that we need.
Ben, from over in the UK, man, what are you seeing over there? Is it different over there than it is over here, or are you seeing the same issues?
It's exactly the same issues, really. Speaking from the kind of security consultancy kind of side, it's you get companies that just don't realize their risk. And even when you start spelling things out and saying, look, if this gets exploited, you are knackered, they'll still turn around and be like, well, it's not been done, that's not happened at the moment, we don't see this as a risk. And it's getting that point across before they breach, basically, which kind of is my job. And it's proving that, it's still, if you can prove it and get that kind of stuff, and really show the directors and show the leadership, which is where the bottleneck is, especially for the British market. It's quite a kind of traditional. Security is a physical thing. It's not something they think about. They think about the lock, they think about the security guy. They don't really think about having to worry about vulnerabilities, having to worry about what the state of their firewall is. That's probably a 5505 or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I don't think anybody really upgrades firmware on firewalls or routers or switches. They'll wait 5 to 10 years and be like, oh, we're going to just redo them and put all brand new ones in.
Yeah,
so they're vulnerable for how many years before they finally replace them instead of updating the firmware.
Yeah, so it's bringing in that different kind of way of doing things, where you've got to take a company from thinking that this is a one-off capital expenditure, that right, it's that, but no, now it's an operating expenditure. You've got to be running this as a monthly service. Yes, your firewall, you've got that, but you need X, Y, Z. And sometimes getting that across to the directorship level, especially in the current climates, is difficult. But yeah, it's something that we kind of should work on. As for the recruiting side, I think the people are there. I just think we're not looking. That's it. We're not looking in the right places. There's loads of people that I see when I'm running B-sides events, when I'm running DCs, when I'm running all kinds of weird things, and they're all like, how do I get in? How do I do that? So
do my best.
The way that I've kind of taken it is I've got a few recruiters that I work with quite a bit, and I am regularly pushing candidates to them because I know they're the kind of people that's going out and asking for the roles. Rather than seeing what's there, they're going out and pushing and saying, well, do you need an analyst? Do you need this? Do you need that? And actually specifying, like getting back to what you were saying about the different roles, specifying about that. It's kind of makes a difference. Sorry to mash a few things in, but hey,
it works.
I go the shotgun tactic.
You want a network. You want like JJ is a classic example. So he just got a new job, and it was purely by his network. He's got a.
Well, it's because JJ networks with everybody. That man is all over LinkedIn. That dude does not quit. I call him a Viking, and apparently he's not allowed to use that name anymore. He tried it once on Discord, and they yelled at him and banned him from that Discord because he had Cyber Viking as his tag. So apparently there's another one out there that doesn't want him to use it. So we're trying to come up with a new name for him. We'll get there. Kim, I think we talked about this before. you being in industry, I mean, you just wrote the pen tester blueprint, I think it is. There it is. Dave got it. What?
Got them all right here.
That's awesome.
Hey, if you want to send me a signed copy, Kim, I'll take it. I ain't gonna be mad at you. But what have you seen that? Where can we improve? Where's the disconnect? Does it start at the top? Is there something us as, you know, someone like Dave Fraley or anybody else new coming in the field, something they can do to improve their standing to be able to? I mean, we can't all afford SANS or OSCP. I'm sorry, at $1,000 a hit for OSCP and over probably $8,000 for SANS. The only thing you have is Security Plus, and even that they keep raising the price on. So how do we break into the field without having to dump a ton of money into certifications, which is what companies are looking for?
Philosophically, I hate putting the burden of problems on the party that has less power. Obviously, in this situation, people who want cybersecurity jobs have a lot less power and a lot less money than the company that are hiring cybersecurity related staff. But unfortunately, like, the establishment can be like very, very stubborn. And yeah, it makes me very angry when I see job ads that want CISSPs for entry-level positions.
Hey, I want a junior analyst with a CISP. What?
Yeah.
What?
And then want someone to have skills in more areas than is humanly possible and pay them like $50,000 a year.
I think Alyssa just put out a job like that. She showed a job posting recently of like the salary was like $50,000 to $65,000 a year, and they were asking for a damn unicorn that ran their entire security department. And you're like, what? Like, are you serious right now? That's what you're looking for? Like, let's be honest here, people. So it's frustrating because I see Ty, who runs his own company and knows that that's not possible, right? You find specialties, you're willing to do certain things. And then the company I work for, where we look at certain things, and if you're applying for a role, everything's based on experience. So if they're hiring for a junior role, but you come in there with like senior level experience and are like, I need a job, they'll be like, all right. So we don't have the funding, and they'll be open with you and be like, we don't have the funding to pay you technically what you're worth, but we can put you in this slot and give you a little bit more than we were gonna pay because you're worth more. We just can't afford to pay more. You know what I mean? So, but you'll see that in smaller companies, especially consulting companies, right? That's their specialty, security. So they know what they're looking for. They know if I need an analyst or I need a blue teamer or a red teamer, that's what we're looking for, and we're gonna target those specialties. But then you have companies that are like, I want to hire security because I don't want to pay a consulting or an MSSP. And then they put out, I want to pay someone $50,000 a year to do my entire security department.
I don't have a huge amount of power, but most of the power that I do have in this industry is through my influence. So in books like The Pen Tester Blueprint, and then I've got like the power of influence through like writing for AT&T Cybersecurity's blog and other areas like that. I try to influence how people think. That's where all my power is. In this book, I did address the mythical cybersecurity skills gap. And I explained that it's bullshit, basically.
Well, it is.
It's bullshit. There is, train people, like put money and resources and time into training people for the very specific niche skills that you want for that position. But companies don't want to do it, and they'll leave positions empty for like years because they're looking for the impossible without, wanting to like spend any money or time or effort in training people whatsoever. Like, companies should be paying their staff to study for specific certifications, and they should cover the expense of like paying for their certification exams and all that shit.
And that blows my mind because I've seen a lot where it's like, hey, we want someone that knows ArcSight. You have to know ArcSight. I used Splunk for years. Oh, you don't know ArcSight? You're not considered for the job.
They're not even going to train you in ArcSight, seeing that you know how to use similar applications.
I may not know the UI, but I know how log correlation works. I know how to build roles for certain things, and you're just not going to train me in the UI. Like,
so I think that brings up another issue that I'll kick back to the group then. A lot of the hiring managers and leaders have no training to do their job, so they don't know that it might only take you a couple of days to figure out this other tool that's similar to another tool. So I think that's another issue of the hiring gap, is a lot of times the hiring managers aren't trained and are doing the best they can, but aren't really skilled at actually hiring.
I think one of the challenges too, we don't talk about enough. It's a lot. I'm not saying it's easier to get into pen testing than it is blue team, but that's probably true. Don't hold me to that. But it's a lot easier to get a hold of pen testing tools than it is blue team tools, because most blue team tools are proprietary and they don't give you free accounts. I mean, Splunk's got some rad free training for veterans. You can download, you can do the boss of the SOC and stuff, but it's a lot more expensive and a lot harder, I think, to replicate enterprise blue team than it is to replicate red teaming. And it's a lot harder to show as a young noob in the field with a blue team blog and not expose a whole bunch of sensitive information about your private network and screenshots if you don't know what the hell you're screenshotting, right? It's a lot less risky to screenshot some red team stuff in a VM than it is to be like, this is the domain controller I set up at my house, here's a screenshot of it, right? I just think that at the personal training level, if you're self-training, it's a lot easier to self-train on red team than it is blue team.
I don't disagree one bit, because what I have told people is use Security Onion. If you're trying to learn log monitoring, if you're trying to learn how to do, the whole blue team aspect of things, Security Onion's huge. Go get an RPi or an old laptop, stand up a VM, whatever, throw it onto a switch port, and there you go. Even if it's just your system you're monitoring, right? So you may not be monitoring an entire domain. I'll be honest, I don't have a domain set up at my house. I've got way too much to be worrying about a domain. My wife would kill me if I was like, you have to use this username in order to log on. Like, she would murder me. But at the end of the day, there's still ways you can monitor your own traffic and monitor for malware. And hell, go out there, stand up a VM, put malware on it, and let it see what it does. Look at the traffic flow. Look at what it's doing. And you can completely lock down a VM and make it host only to where it can't communicate with your host machine or whatever, and put whatever you want on it. Because if it can't talk to the host, a lot of times it's not going to. Now, don't get me wrong, there's ways to escape a VM, so be cognizant of that. Make sure you read up on your malware before you drop malware onto your box. But, or use a beat laptop that you can throw something on that if you crash it, who cares? So there's ways to do it. But yes, to your point, for these companies that want Splunk or want ArcSight or want Logarithm or any of the SIMs or EDR solutions or whatever it is else out there, it is very, very difficult without knowing somebody in that space that'll be like, oh yeah, you can use a license. And even then, a lot of times it's cloud. So if they're giving you a license, you're tying into their cloud. It's very hard to get any training in the blue team side without something like Security Onion.
And then in our area, right, Northern Virginia, DC area with the federal government, good luck finding any of the open source tools you trained on in most of the federal government SOCs, right? So you can get training on Elk and say it's close enough to SIEM or to Splunk as a SIEM, and hopefully a hiring manager will see through that and be able to hire you. But the experience of being a SOC analyst and going from one tool to another, I mean, just to replicate that even in my home lab with experience, I think I would have challenge doing.
Yeah, they'll say something like, I'm happy that you've had your own instance of Security Onion in the cloud for the last 2 years, but how much experience do you have on CrowdStrike? 0?
Right.
Okay, well, no job for you.
yeah, that's it. But
$20 a month, we've hosted the Splunk box and a Security Onion box in the cloud for the last year and a half now. And I tell the students, if you want it, you can go get it. right, for fairly nothing.
I want 20 years Windows Server 2016 experience.
20. I just feel like, you know, everyone is just trying to maximize everything, you know, without spending money. And that even goes to like folks that are looking for training, right? Folks will they'll look for free training first.
Right.
And then they'll go find the $14.99 training and then wait for a discount to the $14.99 training, right? So companies and people are just, it just seems like they're just trying to maximize as much as they possibly can.
I think people though is different. And anybody here, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're trying to break into this field, a lot of times if you're working full time, you're getting into this field either A, because you love it, or B, because you see that you can make more money doing this than what you're currently doing. You might be working retail for 36 grand a year if you're lucky, so you want to get into an actual career. So when you're trying to do something like that, it's hard to be like, oh, okay, I can afford $15 or I can afford $50 or whatever the case may be. Even though you may be able to, you see that as a wall, right? I've got to pay just to be able to get into a career. So I can understand though where people that do the free training, like I truly believe this, you get what you pay for in life, and especially in this field. If you want to get the best of the best, look, I'll be the first one to say the reason SANS is so good is because they're in the field. Like, in order to train on SANS, you have to be doing the job every day. That has to be your full-time job, or else they will not allow that instructor to keep teaching that course. So that is why they're so expensive, because it's taking time out of their workday, and sometimes they have to take leave or, you know, non-paid or whatever the case may be. So, you know, that's why they're so expensive, but that's why it's companies that should pay for that. If you want someone with a GSEC, you better be paying for their GSEC. If you want,
I totally agree with Kim's point and other points that the burden's on the company.
Yes.
Right. So we don't have to talk about capitalism on this podcast. We can have another one about that. But I mean, that there is an issue, right, about cost. And like, if you look back in the history, like 20, 30 years ago, like apprenticeships were very common.
And
right?
they should still be.
Right. And that's what's actually needed, is to take someone that has shown some initiative and hire them maybe at a, you know, like a paid internship or apprentice level. And then you could determine, you know, pretty quickly whether you're going to want to train this person to keep them on. And I think like industry leaders in this field need to be pushing for that.
I think about, you know, I started in construction working for my old man before I joined the Army. Hey, Dad. You know, and I wasn't allowed to operate the Bobcat until I watched my brother operate. You know, he was my supervisor for a certain amount of years, and I wasn't allowed to drive the dump truck because I couldn't be on the insurance at 18. I think I had to be 21 or 25 because it was a risk thing. You think about a malware analyst. I want to make sure that malware analyst has some experience, or a tier 1 analyst who has a chance to touch malware in a phishing email, that they have some good onboard training to understand. Don't detonate that shit on your desktop, right? What is a sandbox?
What? It's bad? No.
Not having solid onboarding training and novice training before like they start getting privileges to, you know, the security mailbox.
Don't email me the malware. There's a specific way to submit it. Thank you.
Right, but if you're a tier 1 analyst, you get access to that mailbox day one before you've probably even done your onboard training. You could easily open that damn attachment that somebody submitted. Right. And that's a huge risk, right? Throwing somebody in a forklift without any forklift training, and they go, you know, and they put the forklift through the side of a customer's truck. Like we absolutely have to get better at onboarding training. One of the things I started at a previous client, and I've done a little bit at my current client, was we'd always set out like a week of training. And, you know, as soon as you recommend that, clients like, whoa. Like, but we're going to train with real world data. All I mean in this training week is no bullshit meetings. We're not going to go into any normal project meetings Monday through Friday. The team is just dedicated. We're going to do half a day in the conference room with whiteboard and stuff. The other half of the day, we're going to work real tickets, right? If it's a SOC, right? And it's, you work on real data, but you have structure around it. You have some fundamentals going over, like, why do we care about phishing and how do we triage phishing and what do we look at with it, right? And then you go to the phishing mailbox and deal with phishing emails. every time I've done this with clients, we've actually had a spike in metrics because we got more things done in our training week with real material than not doing that stuff. And then you actually help baseline your documentation, you baseline, you know, you get some your tier 3 knowledge down to tier 1, or somebody's like, hey, did you know you can do this thing in Excel a lot faster, right? And there's, you know, teamwork, like there's a lot of things that we could be doing, but organizations have to understand, and we have to be better at explaining what the benefits really are of training. I've told clients, I won't just say it because he's here on the call, like you should bring in somebody like Ty's company to do the SOC 101 training, right? With your entire SOC. One, it's probably going to be cheaper overall. You could probably get a deal if it's for 20 analysts and do it all during the same week with your own data, right? Bring in someone who's a good trainer and get really good training here on site with real data. Like that to me is the smartest move you can make.
I don't think y'all want to get me started on training and in-person training, because I have a huge problem with CBTs. I have an absolute, I despise computer-based training for end users. I absolutely despise it, because 9 times out of 10, it's click. Oh, I'm gonna take this test real quick. Oh, I failed. Let me take it again. All right, I passed this time, and we're done. They've learned nothing, absolutely nothing. They just click through it, and
that
so
seems to be the way to go, though. Or just you get a class and then you watch a video, and then the video plays for an hour.
It is
while I play on Twitter.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's more efficient than a lot of the training I see.
But here's it's such a problem. I mean, I look at one of the big things when I first started out of the Army, back when I was trying to start my own company with Shelter Cybersecurity, one of the big things I wanted to do was in-person training. And it wasn't in person like, hey, I'll teach you Linux, or hey, I'll teach you this. It was cyber awareness. It was really cyber awareness, because like people don't care about computer-based training, right? They click through it. I was in the Army and we had to take that shit every year. Every goddamn year you got the same exact training, and you were like, all right, let me go through and I'm done. And you would take the test, and I ain't gonna lie, us in security, we found ways around it. We found like SQLI in the URL where we were like true, and we're just gonna take the test now.
Just some basic HTML.
Jeff is disappointed,
right? Like, but that's what we did, because we looked at it, was like, this is a joke. Nobody cares. Like, nobody really cares about these CBTs. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, KnowBe4 is a great company, and there's a lot of great companies out there that are trying to push for phishing and cyber awareness training and all this other stuff. But I'm sorry, unless somebody is able to speak in front of a group of people and show them a phishing email where somebody can raise their hand like, hey, can you show me again, like, how do I recognize a fake email, or how do I look for this link? They're not going to pay attention to a computer. They're just going to be like, and next. Or if it's a video, they're going to mute the video, and they're going to do what they want to do, and then when the video's over, they'll click next.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to chime in here. So at our company, we use KnowBe4 for our HIPAA training. Before we switched to KnowBe4, we were using some Illuminosity or whatever to train, and it was a 2-hour long test. Like, it went over a ton of stuff, and at first I thought, I was like, that's really long, like maybe dumb it down a little bit. KnowBe4 is 15 minutes, and you're training somebody up in our insurance department that deals with patient information, PHI, all day long. And also, everybody in our company gets an email address. We do not train them at all on any sort of phishing emails. Like, I talked to my boss and I was like, hey, maybe we should do a phishing campaign, like at least maybe, 2-3 times a year, just to kind of, because of our turnover rate, like you have to, inform these people and get them, their awareness on track. And he goes, well, have you checked our
$2 million?
Yeah. Well, I asked him, and I don't want to like put down our company or anything, but he goes, well, have you gone to our homepage? And I said, well, yeah, I go, anytime you open up a browser, it's right there. He goes, well, there's a PDF. And I'm like, you can't. And I went around and I started asking people. I said, did you know that there's a cybersecurity awareness PDF? And they were like, no. And I'm like, then we need to change our way of making that available to people because they're not seeing it. Like, I don't, and I
that's
try
being
to-
reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah.
Really. That's
And I'm
all it
just
is.
like, like, and I've been trying to like come up with stuff and like telling people when they get, because I set up every new person that comes into our company. So I set them up with all their accounts, their Active Directory profile, their email, et cetera, et cetera. And I tell them when I'm up there, I'm like, be aware of bad emails that could come through. Make sure you're checking grammatical errors and all this other stuff. Making sure that, you know, pretty much for the most part, everybody in our company, when they send out an email, they have a signature with our company logo. If you're getting something from somebody that doesn't have that, don't click on any of the attachments. Don't do nothing. No links. Nada.
I came this close to falling for a phishing email.
Well, and that's the
and
thing.
it was literally, it came from our COO or something like that. And well, it said it did. And I initially didn't look at the email address. It just said his name, and it was like, hey, I'm in the middle of a call. Send me your phone number or whatever so that I can, you know, get you on this call. And I literally hit reply and then went back and read the email again. And then looked at the email address and was like, wait a second. This is not legit. But it was one of those, hey, this is urgent, coming from somebody who is really high up in the company that I know. And I was like, my first response was like, oh, I need to do this. And then I was like, wait a second. And you take that second look and you're like, oh no. Like, I showed my manager, I was like, dude, look what they tried getting me with. And they were close. They almost got me. I was like, it almost happened.
To be fair, though, some of those emails that they send out are very sophisticated. Like, there are no grammatical errors. Like, they've done their homework on your company. You know, and you have to kind of dig a little bit deeper, I guess, to find, like, where they goofed up, you know, because you can go into, like, I don't know. It's been a while since I've done it, but I mean, you can go in and find some of the metadata or whatever to see exactly where it came from and be able to determine, okay, this is a phishing email. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I wish that there was more training on that, at least from our company standpoint. Because it's like, again, and I've heard tons of people talk about this. You can have all the shiny equipment and everything that you want.
But then you click the link.
You click the link.
So if I change my corporate hat, I'm actually the security officer for my company. So I've before I got into the cybers, I was a security manager for a couple of Pentagon clients. And, you know, when I got there, it was the same thing. We would send out the PowerPoint once a year, and you sign the certificate at the end of the PowerPoint, and you send it back to the security team, which, by the way, as a security team, that's a real pain in the ass to try to do for like 600 employees, try to figure out who did and didn't do it. So I started doing in-person when I was there with that client. That was been back in when I got out of the Army, like 2011, 2012. And what I found from the in-person, one, you could have more of a dynamic conversation and figure out you're talking to finance versus HR, right? Like, you can't say as a security team, you got to watch out for resume-themed phishing emails. Well, it's my HR department. They get freaking resumes all the damn time. Like, I got to give them a better solution, right? And when I started actually doing in-person events, almost every time I'd have a line of like 10 people afterwards that would be like, hey, Andy, we really got to talk about something. It's like, and it was, they figured out who I was. It wasn't just coming from security at email address, right? They saw the faces of the security team we introduced. They realized we were normal people. It's not my job to chase you down and punish you. I'm not a cop, kind of a thing, right? And we had really good conversations, and we identified a bunch of risks to the organization through conversations that never happens if you do it through PowerPoint or online training. I don't care how sophisticated your cybercom building training is, and you click them through and Jeff's disappointed in you. You have to know who your security team is, know them by name. I've heard it so many times, especially when I got into cyber threat information sharing side. Oh, I won't tell the government, but I'll share with you, right? Because people want to talk to another human. They don't want to talk to an email address. And that's critical for security team success, is that they know they can reach out to a human on the other side. As a security officer, I've had people have to tell me about their divorces, you know, their bankruptcies, their foreclosures, all that crap through the horribleness of the market the last 20 years. You don't do that to security at email address. You do that to a human.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get off that soapbox.
Question for the group, just to kind of
report that, Ty.
Yeah, to change it up for a little bit. Has anyone actually tried to find a new position from scratch recently, like without relationships?
Nope.
Like, and just
I
seeing
did.
that process.
Yeah, I did, and I got the
Like-
job. I actually started in a week.
What?
Nice. Congrats.
Congrats.
Yeah, no, I had to start a scratch. Like when I think maybe it's a little different coming from like the background that I have, because I've authored a book. I've been a pen tester for the DoD, and then also for like commercial as well. So like I have a big background, but or I guess not a big background, but a vast background.
Mm.
And but yeah, I wound up interviewing, or well, not interviewing. I found a job that really spoke out to me with a company called Cobalt, and they sell like pen testing as a service essentially. For like CI, CD pipelines and DevOps and stuff like that. And they had a different job called the pen test, the director of pen test community. So the highest job title I've ever held is like lead and manager, right? And so this is a job that like I looked at and was far and ahead of what I was thinking of. And it was a new job that didn't really have like there weren't jobs like it where you could like go and reference like what it was that you needed to get that job. And I was looking at what it needed, and I was looking at it, and I was like, man, I gotta redo the resume from scratch. And then even like after getting my resume done, and submitting it out, I even reached out directly to like the CSO and was like, hey, I submitted for this job. Like, I'd really like to talk to you if you have a chance to talk about it. Not thinking honestly in a chance in hell that I was going to get even a talk back. And that honestly, like that turned into like 3 weeks worth of interviews. And then, and at the end of those 3 weeks, it turned into a job offer. So
you did what I tell so many people to do. And for anybody on here, please, I beg of you, tell me I'm wrong. If you submit a resume, find the hiring manager or somebody in that department and tell them you applied.
Oh, yeah.
Find them on LinkedIn, tell them you applied. And I say that getting somebody, because I told him to do that, he got a job at SpaceX. Like, I legit said, hey, reach out to security, say you've applied, and let them know. And within a month, he had a job, his dream job, at SpaceX. And he had applied several times with the same exact resume, never got a call back.
Yep.
Finally, the security manager was like, send me your resume.
So he's doing security in cyberspace?
Yeah.
I'll see myself out.
Does he happen to be up in my neck of the woods up here near Seattle? Because they have a security operations center up here.
Maybe. He had to move. I don't know exactly where he's at. Where he moved to. He ended up having.
Because like
move.
I can't tell you. AKA, it's just Seattle.
No, to add to that point though, like that's entirely true. Like I've been told, like if you go and apply, find like the recruiter, like get his email and be like, okay, hey. And if you don't hear anything back from the recruiter, then you go to the company's LinkedIn page and you find, the whatever position you're applying for, you find like their manager, and then you email them, hey, just to let you know, I've applied for this position. Have you had a chance to check my resume yet? Still very interested in this job.
Yeah, the reality is we get a few hundred to a few thousand, applicants for every position we post, depending on the season and what we post. So it's not like we review all those before we start deciding who to interview. So anything you can do to make your name known is huge. Just reaching out and being like, pull that from the top of the stack. Because I don't go through 1,000.
It doesn't even matter where you're at too. Like you can have you can have the alphabet soup behind your name with certifications, have PhD tied to your name. You can have 20 years of experience, but guess what? You're still in the stack. So the only way, I think a big thing, like we're all, the unspoken word that we're talking about is ego, right? And our ego says like, oh, well, we qualify for this job, so we're gonna go apply for it. We should get a call back, and then you don't get a call back, and you're like, oh, what the hell?
So
and it's that little extra momentum, right?
I'm gonna take this as something. And
did they not see the name on the resume?
Right? Did you not see that had OSCP? Like, what? You know who I am.
So I'm gonna say something here though, and it is very true, and I have seen it very frequently, and Kim can probably speak to this. As a male, we don't care what the job says, we're gonna apply. If we're interested, we're gonna apply. We're gonna look at the name, maybe glance at what's required, and apply for the job. Whereas, more often than not, women will look at a job, look at every detail, And if they don't meet 80 to 90% of the requisites, they're not going to apply.
That's
We
exactly
could meet
correct.
20%. We could be like, I got a certification that it says, sure, I'm applying.
Hell, we could just be like, we feel it. We feel like we're in this position.
I applied for jobs when I was getting out of the army because they were in Antarctica. I had no qualifications. I wanted to go to Antarctica.
Kim, am I right? Am I right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I think partly it's if you're anything but like a white guy or an Asian guy, if you're in this industry, you feel like you really have to demonstrate that you're worthy of being in a technical field. So I'm very, very lucky because the kind of work that I do aren't the kind of jobs that there are job postings for, right? I had to like build my own career basically. But yeah, I mean, back when I did ordinary run-of-the-mill IT work before I had the career that I have now, yeah, all those tech support jobs I applied for that I did eventually get like well over a decade ago, I fit the qualifications. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine applying for a job where I only fit like 10 or 20% of the qualifications. Like, I remember back when I had to pound the pavement looking for work, that was, yeah, over 10 years ago. I didn't want to waste all that effort, having to have like a unique cover letter and all that bullshit on something that is like a winning the lottery kind of chance. Like, it is a lot of work applying for jobs.
I'll tell you outright.
If it says cyber, I'm applying.
Right? That's what I'm
Do it. Just send
I
it.
was getting out of the army, I did not do a single cover letter. I did not do anything. I built my resume. I went on to LinkedIn. I went on to Indeed. And I went on to, I don't know, Monster. Put my resume out there and just hit apply on every job. Every job that said cyber, I said, I want to work here. And then if they said, hey, we want to interview you, then I'd research the company. Then I'm like, oh, okay, let me go see what this company is actually about and see if this interview is going to be worth my time or not. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I always felt like I could care less what my certifications are or what my degree is. I'm going to speak to who I am and what I can do.
The last time I was in the job market, which was about a decade ago, the usual advice was each employer wants a unique cover letter.
Oh, they probably do. I just didn't care. There was way too much work in that. I'd have to sit there and screw that, man. You have me do a resume, upload it to your application site, then basically do the entire thing over again on your application site, and then actually apply. Like, no, I'm not going through the work of doing a cover letter.
Just apply.
Yeah.
Just apply. Tell people you don't just apply.
This is 2020. Your cover letter is dropping my DM on tweet and tell me to get that.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, that's cute. You got a cover letter? Like, honestly, I don't think I've even applied for any job my first 10, 12 years. My first job, I just happened to be nice to a guy that worked in the back of the cubicle. And he's like, I already know who you are. So if you want the job, you have the job. And I looked at the offer and I was like, damn, had I known, I wouldn't have even gotten dressed up for this. And it just happened to be GTFGNO. And then I just got to use that.
And that's where networking is key. And Mike, am I wrong? Have you seen a lot of the same things where networking makes the world go round right now, especially in terms of cybersecurity?
The relationships.
Yeah, I mean, for me coming in, actually, my boss is somebody who I had worked with at my last job for 5 or 6 years. And she had opted over to cybersecurity kind of when that FedRAMP stuff was first taken off. And she needed somebody to do the work. She knew I was absolutely more than capable of doing the work. And actually, I had just gotten my Sec Plus a couple weeks before running into her at a conference that my old company ran every year. And she's like, here, just get me a resume. A couple weeks later, got in, talked to her manager, and by mid-April had the offer and started at June, just because I've been with the old company for 10 years. Wanted to give them, a good month of time to make sure everything transitioned over.
For sure, for sure.
Question I get when it comes to networking lately, as I continue to mentor folks in the community, especially a lot of junior folks trying to get in, is they don't seem to like understand. They're like, "How do I network?" And I was like,
"Say hi."
You go to events, you like DM some people, you try to introduce yourselves. You're nice. Like, it's not complicated. Like, you might not hear from certain people, like maybe they're busy, maybe they're not on Twitter, or that guy's not on LinkedIn or whatever, but like, just introduce yourself, go to things, volunteer at events, because then you meet people. But I don't know, we need like the cheat sheet of like networking 101.
So before I wrap up the stream, and then we'll talk some more, but I am gonna have to close out the stream. We're already at like an hour and a half. I will say this: if you are going to network, go on LinkedIn, go on Twitter, say hi and introduce yourself. And I'm not saying introduce yourself and be like, hey, I'm looking for a job. No. Go on there, say hi, and get to know people. That's how I've met Kim. That's how I've met John and Tyrone and Andy and Mike and everybody else, is just by talking to people and being like, hey, man, what do you do? Do you enjoy it? Is it fun? Whatever the case may be. And then if you are looking for a job, then at that point, later on, after you've already, built a rapport, then be like, hey, by the way, I'm looking for work.
Want me to tell you what I did? I did some research on the top 25 Black men in cyber, and I found an article, and I wasn't on the list. So what I did was I went to every single one of them on LinkedIn and just connected with all of them, because I felt like at some point I would be able to reach back out to them or have a connection, or they would at least have an idea of who I am. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm coming for everyone.
Right.
That's on this list. And now I can see what needs to be done, the criteria and all that stuff. But making those connections is key.
It is. So let's
wrap
this up.
With content creators, interact, you read a good blog.
Yeah.
Give them feedback, man. I may be a sociopath, but I love when people give me feedback on my content.
Oh, so do I. So here's the deal, right? I'm going to wrap this up. We'll stay on and talk a little bit after. But if you are not looking at or supporting any of these people on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, whatever the case may be, Kim now has a YouTube channel. Please look at and support. Kim, I will get your YouTube link and put it in the description after we're done.
Yeah, listen to my talking teddy bear.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Very smart.
John, I want everybody who has information, please email it to me. You all have the email. Shoot me an email of any YouTube channel, any blogs, anything. We're going to put it in the description, because here's the deal. That's how people learn about who we are. All right. Saying that, I am Cyber Warrior. These are my wonderful guests who have been on the show. Paul and Ben, I know you didn't say a whole terrible lot. I tried to get you in there as much as I can. Thank you for your time being in the UK. I am grateful that you were here. This is Security Happy Hour, and I'm out.